So I think that you've already noticed that we have the same kind of colors up here. So what if we can say I can have this one? It's on the background color back on the flex box over there, and it's still on CSS grid. And we can see that we have this one. It's already repeated up here. So we have some kind of repetition, right? It wouldn't it be better if instead of repeating that same value and we could be make the human error of changes it a bit, and there's going to be an error on our part because we didn't follow the company guidelines for those that we worked for. Would it be better if we just store them somewhere in a variable? That's a custom property. We can store many things and do a lot of things in custom properties. That's like sky is the limit there. But I'm going to show you now a couple of ways to do it. And there are global and we have local custom properties. Custom properties are basically variables. So you store a value and give that value a name so we can retrieve it, and that works with the simple keep it dry, don't repeat yourself. You type it once and the only thing you repeat is actually that variable, and whenever you want to change that variable's value, you change it in one place, which is part of I don't remember what you call it, single point of definition. So if you're making global variables, what you do is that you start with something called the root. The root is basically selecting the HTML value, the HTML element, but we are going to work with the root right now. And the practice is always you type the global variables in the root element. Root is basically selecting the HTML element, but this is how we do it. So container width. What this does is that it selects it. My AI helped me select some kind of value there. Do you recognize it? It's down here. Now I've only typed this once. I don't really know why it decided to say that, well, you need to define it up here. I think it's, you can define things even though you only type it once, of course, but it's more useful for things that you want to type it 2 times, 3 times, 100 times, and you want to easy access all those things. If you want to change that value just slightly, you can do it just in one place. So let's go ahead and do that. And we can have the colors, of course. I think I'll take these colors up here, copy this thing. I'll put them in here. It's going to look mad, but it's okay. And it's on purpose. I'm gonna remove that. I'm going to take this as well. And then I'm going to take this and that. Okay, and I'll remove all of those extra thingies. And these are the custom properties I'm going to fix. So let's call them something. So how do we name a custom property? Well, first off, a custom property always has to have these. So when we store the value and give it a name, that value name always has to begin with 2 dashes. So let's call them CLR1. For color 1, we could have used more semantically valuable color names like, accent color, secondary color, primary color, tertiary color, a little things like that. But right now, just keep the values of color 1. Take this one, and actually I had this semicolon at the very end, so I don't need it. And now I could just go ahead and type these as 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I go ahead and copy this one, copy this one, copy that one, and copy the last one here. And we can remove that. And the only thing that we have left right now is that I've forgotten this bracket there. So we can see that we have colors and up here we call them color 1, color 2, color 3, color 4, color 5. So let's go ahead and just make one of those changes. Whenever I find this value down in the context here, which I'm going to do quite often, whenever that happens, so let's select these things. I want to paste in something else. I want to use var, and var is a CSS function. That is a CSS function that calls upon the custom properties I've written. So you really, to make use of these custom properties, you have to use a CSS function. So that's why I said earlier that I'm not going to follow this this structure of just introducing CSS function and taking custom properties, because these are, really connected to one another in some way. There are other CSS functions, but this is one of those CSS functions that's really dependent on the custom properties being existing. So it calls upon something, and it's such an easy thing. Right now, instead of typing that whole value and remember it, every time I'm going to use the color 1, I'm going to type t -- color 1 inside of this. So now it's the same thing. Nothing changes. It's the same thing. Now, it wouldn't change too much in this space because it's hidden behind. But let's keep on doing this. I'll do this for the grid because it's the same. Go. And then I'm quite sure this is the color 2. So I change this to color 2. And then we can go ahead and take this as color 3. And this one as color 4. And then this one as color 5. I say nothing has changed, but to prove to you that there is actually something going on here, you can look at, for example, color 4 there. Maybe if I just go ahead and give that a value of color 3, you can see that the 8 becomes blue. And now if we go back, it becomes nothing, because I've removed the color of that. There's nothing called color dash without a number, right? This is just an empty custom property. It's calling on some custom property that doesn't exist. So what it's showing is what's beneath it, and what's beneath is this value, color 2. So let's go ahead and type color 4 again. And it pops up being color 4. This is beautiful, I think. We can use this again and again and again. Of course, I'll go ahead and do that. I take this color 2 thingy. I think color 3 thingy. I think color 2 doesn't exist really in the CSS grid because we never needed it. And then we go ahead with 4 and 5. And down here, you remember we switched them around. So this one is now 5 and 4. The beautiful thing now is that you're thinking, okay, why does this matter? It matters a lot. Now the customer comes to me and says, we've changed our main colors. Oh, we changed our main colors. Color 3 and 4, they have been changed. Okay, what have they been changed to? So they've been changed to slightly more purple. Okay, thank you very much. I don't have to look up where they are, what exists in my documents. I just have to save, and then it's purple. You see? Single point of definition. It's almost magic. That is the custom property for you. Now let's take a look at another function which is very useful. Let's go ahead and look at, for example, this one. It is neat to type things like this, right? It's not. What you could do is basically calculate the thing, and this is very redundant. Like, it's not really a useful calculation Most of the times you have to use calculations when there's more to it. But let's do it. If I really need to make something 33%, why not take 100% and divide it by 3? If I want to take a third of something, why not do this? I get the exact value. It's perfect. I love it. Let's do the same thing here. In this case, it is slightly different, right? I could go ahead and say divide by 3, but that would not be correct. I need 2 parts of that. So I can go ahead and put an extra parenthesis, or maybe I don't. But I think I have to do that right now because it's going to take that in arithmetics. It's going to take the product before. And then we take, times 2. AI, help me. So you see it says 100% divided by 3 times 2. And that's going to make the same thing. It's just going to make it so much easier for me to know that I did the right thing. Now 33.3333% was a simple thing to know. But this is something that just does it for you. If you need to put in extra parameters, like, for example, removing, measuring also the borders for some reason. So we have to remove the measurement of the borders. Well, what is the border size? Oh, it's 2 pixels. So we could have stored that in a variable. Say we had stored it in a variable. You could go in here and you remove the amount of borders that existed as well, and then take its time to and whatever you want to, and then you get that whole calculation done for you automatically. But it really depends on where your limit is when it comes to calculations. Calculations are also good for dividing up things, dividing things up that you want to process. It's like maybe you want to increase something by a factor and you want that factor to change between screen sizes. Well, in that case, calculations are fine. It's just a beautiful thing to use. They are causing the browser to work a bit slower, not much, but with enough calculations out there, it's going to tax the loading and the speed of your page, definitely. But it's, computers get stronger all the time, and one day, sooner or later, I think that would be a redundant measure. Let's look at something else. We've already discussed this thing. It's actually a function as well, as a CSS function. And there are more functions to this. Some of them are working only with CSS Grid, some of them are working with both, and so on. But I really want to tell you there are so many, so it's really not something I want to go through all of them. But I'll tell you a couple of things that you really need to focus on, like HSL. You already know that one. HSL is a function that you definitely know already. We have RGB, which is a function that you already know. These are color functions. We have min, which is wonderful, and there's max, and there's something else called clamp. I think we could do clamp. I'll do that in this video. Clamp is like a combination of these two. And then we have min max. We have the max. We have auto fit, auto fill. These are not classical functions. They don't put in parameters, but they are used almost as functions inside of, for example, CSS Grid. So you look them up. I think they're going to help you a lot. There's also understanding other things. I think a couple of other things I'm going to throw out there so you get to focus on them are units, because units are really connected to how we work with responsive web design. You'll learn more about units a bit when you're looking at these things I have in the literature. For example, the thing on Udemy. And if I don't have that thing on Udemy anymore, when you see this recording, I'll have replaced it with something else, which is going to make units clear for you, and especially unit conversion. But we have one rem. No, not one rem. We could just call it rem. Rem. We have em. We have, of course, pixels. You need to know what that is. We have VW. We have, sorry, it's just going to try to help me when I don't want it to. And we have their counterparts, of course, in the VH. Sorry, that's DVH. And now we have percentage, yes. And now we have other things. I could say values, fractions, of course, fractional units. That is extremely important to know. So we have these. I think that's going to be taking... I'm trying to see if there's something I missed there. I don't think so. They're not too many, but these are different kind of units that you definitely would need to learn. But let's go back to talk about clamp, right? So I'm going to remove this, otherwise it's going to be a syntax error. Please type this over or copy this so you can look into it yourself. Let's see. We have clamp. Clamp, you could use that as saying, I'm going to allow this to have a minimum value. It can never be smaller than that. I'm going to allow it to have a maximum value. You're like clamping it between these two, the minimum and the maximum. And then there's going to be a preferred value. So let's take the example. We could, for example, add a title to this page. Like call it H1, and we call it title. And now it pops up there. Perfect. We got an extra, space around it. Doesn't really matter. We have title, and it's really large. Now we want to fix that H1. I'm going to do that using just simple an HTML selector. Not that it matters in this case. And I'm going to change the width of the size of the font depending on the screen size. So let's say we could font. Yeah, we could do that. I think font is maybe it's going to be overreaching it, but I'm going to try using font with this one. Clamp, and then add. Yeah, there you go. We go with 3 rem. It had a good suggestion for me, actually. There you go. Yeah, let's go with that. This is not what it suggested recently, but I'll think I go with 3, 5, and I'm going to DVW, and I'm going to go with 6. Maybe this works. And that's the H1. Let's see then if you can see. Can you see on the screen that at this time we have something which is that's called title over here, and you can see it's kind of small. And then when I increase the size, it expands. It continues to expand, but then it stops at some level. So it doesn't really continue forever and get huge, and it doesn't really shrink forever and get tiny. It is going to exist between these two minimum and maximum stages. It's going to prefer to be 5% of the screen width dependent on that. And but whenever this size means that it will be larger than 6 rem, it's not going to be. And whenever this size means that it's going to be smaller than 3 rem, it's not going to be. So it's whenever this size means it's going to surpass this minimum or this maximum, it's going to stay at this minimum or this maximum. Otherwise, it's going to be fluent and always follow the screen width. And you can see that it does that. So whenever I increase the width or the height, it just changes. I could have done this differently. Could have done this with height as well, like this. Now, if I change the width on my screen, nothing's going to change. But if I change the height on my screen, let me do that. I think you'll see it goes smaller and larger, smaller and larger. Oh. That's clamp for. You can understand how that's going to be useful, especially when you're working with text. For example, if you have a lot of text, you could say that this text, I want it to be, oh, there you go. That's the character thing. I forgot a unit. Please also take the character unit into account. It's really important. That's good that I took the example. If I had this, some kind of paragraph, some kind of text going on, let me create some text. Let's go ahead and you'll see it. And let make it be like some kind of lorem ipsum text going on there. There's like a lot of text. And I have font size, and we're not going to say font size anymore. We're going to say width, the width of this P element. And we want it to be something that where we can read easily. So we could say that we don't want a row on this reading line to be more than 60 characters wide. And we don't want it to be less than 40 characters wide either. So we could say that we wanted to take up 100% of its parent, but only if that means that it's going to be between these two amounts of characters. So it's going to count actual characters. So now it says 60. And now I shrink it down. It's going to continue shrinking. But you see it's out of the screen right now. It doesn't fit in the screen anymore. And it's because it says, it is below 40. So it's not going to let it go below 40. I'm also going to take this and say text align, because I got really annoyed by this. Text align left. And we could see then. We could also change this to be some kind of 80%. So we can actually see what's going on here. I have 80%, and then I smaller, and it still doesn't shrink because 60 and 40 is the limit. So it cannot grow larger than 60 characters in a row. And it cannot grow smaller than 40 characters in a row. And that is really useful in many cases, especially when you're working with reading a lot of text. You don't want people to have a difficult time reading that text. Wonderful. I think that kind of sums it up. For your sake, I also want to include the last slide regarding custom properties. So it could be, you could think of them as variables. You can think of them as somewhere you can store information like colors, sizes, and what's on. And then you can also apply a pedagogical name for it so it's easy to understand what it contains, and you can reuse it. It is really going to help you keep control of the information that you handle on your site, to use that information, and to limit the amount of code you need to work with. And it's going to make it easier for you to take comments, get feedback from your customers and improve upon the feedback without having to rework all the code. I think that's enough. That is really a lot for this lecture. And the next thing I'm going to hope you do is going into the lesson and look at what's in there. And that's going to help you take things further. Best of wishes, and thank you for watching.